Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Aquarius II. I hope you're doing well out there. Please leave me a message in the chat box to let us know that you're here today and where you're coming from. I'm joined here today by my good friend Porsche Bazany. How you doing, Porsche?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's exciting to have you here. You've been a great participant in the chats of these live streams and are
Yeah.
an excellent astrologer. So I'm really excited that our community is kind of like coming together here. It's very cool. Um,
Yeah.
so tell us, Portia, where are you joining us from, and what are some of your history with astrology?
So I am currently in Syracuse, New York. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., and I spent like 10 years in Colorado between Boulder and Denver. And as far as the astrology, I've been studying that for like pretty much almost 15 years, or maybe even a little bit longer. Just to keep it really brief, I was introduced to tarot and astrology essentially at the same time. I was kind of in between like belief systems. I was raised in a Christian belief system, and then I kind of like distanced myself from that. And I was working with a girl who was raised like some sort of pagan like religion. And so I was like, oh my goodness, tell me everything. Like, what do I need to know? And she just gave me a deck of tarot cards and was just like, figure it out. Like, we weren't friends. I was like new at the job. And then eventually we connected and we had our own coven and things of that nature. And we started using the moon cycles. So that was kind of my introduction to astrology and tarot. And it's been kind of an ongoing experience or journey since then. And then it kind of transformed into studying astronomy. So I went to college for astronomy and physics, and that's how I ended up in Colorado. And then once I graduated, I got back into astrology, and it just started to like connect and build from there. So
It's
that's
awesome.
it in a nutshell. Yeah.
I love the connections with astronomy too. It's great to be able to go out and observe the night sky and bring it all together with the symbolism as well, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's
I
awesome.
love going outside and connecting just with a visceral sensation of being able to see it and take in that light through the eye.
Yeah. I would
Um,
say I miss the skies in Colorado. Like, it's always overcast here,
yeah,
so it's hard to observe. But in Colorado, I mean, it's so dry that you
oh
just
yeah,
get really like bright. If you can get away from the city, you get a really bright sky and just so many opportunities to observe.
yeah, definitely jealous. We've got quite a bit of light pollution over here in
Yeah.
southeastern Michigan near Detroit. So hopefully I'll be able to get out to some of those dark skies at some point and be able to take all that in. I had that experience a little bit when we went up to the upper peninsula of Michigan a few years ago, where there's not a lot of light pollution. You could just see
Yeah.
the Milky Way. It's just like, whoa, this is insane. So very
Right.
cool. Um, so Portia, we've got a few friends joining us in the chat here. I'll just shout them out real quick. We've got Bonnie stopping in from sunny Santa Monica. Hello, Bonnie. Fionn here is joining us from Ireland. Hello, friend. El Nash is here, stopping in from St. Louis. We are glad that you are catching us live as well, Nash. There. So yeah, we've got a spicy full moon that we're going to be breaking down here in a second. But before we get to that, Portia, where can we find your services? What kind of things are you have coming up in the hopper, offerings, classes, whatnot? What do you got going on?
Yeah, so right now I have a Chiron class, decoding Chiron in the birth chart, that is happening this Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Zoom. So that's a virtual class. And this class is awesome because it was voted on by a lot of the people that follow me on Instagram or like follow my stories. So I did a poll asking people what they wanted to learn about, and Chiron was what came through, which is funny because I haven't really focused a lot on Chiron, but it kind of aligned because I had some like triggers or activations with my placement and stuff that's coming up too with this Mars retrograde that's happening
Sure.
soon in Gemini. So it was really good that I got some insight and focus on that particular placement. So I'll be teaching that. And I also offer readings and like tarot, astrology, and things of that nature. And you can find that on my website, uraniauniverse.com. But if you want to just really engage and keep up with me, I'm most active on Instagram, which
Yeah.
my handle is at Urania_universe.
Yeah, that's really where I've been kind of consuming your awesome content that you're very consistent with. You make great videos there on Instagram, so highly recommend giving Portia a follow there for sure. And check out that Chiron class. That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so uraniauniverse.com,
Mm-hmm.
Urania underscore universe on Instagram.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. We've got Jude stopping in from Australia. Our international crowd is starting to stop in. That's exciting. Just a few more business things before we dive into the astrology today. I do have a couple services coming up. Of course, I'm doing readings throughout the summer. My books are open right now. If you're wanting to schedule a reading, I do fixed stars, tarot-based decan readings, full natal treatments, transits, and whatnot. So if you're needing some guidance through these challenging times, I'd be happy to help out. And I have my Decans of Leo webinar that is coming up on August the 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So you can still sign up for that. That's the last in my webinar series for the Decans, which is pretty exciting. Stuck with it throughout the entire year.
Nice.
And it was a lot of work, but it was very exciting. I learned a ton. We've had a lot of great people through there. And we'll have to see what's next, like where we're going next, like crossing over to the other side, like with this full moon. So check that out. If you are wanting to support the work that we're doing here, the easiest thing you can do is leave us a comment in the chat, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you aren't, and subscribe to my newsletter, SpencerMichaud.com newsletter. You can find that. Portia, do you have a newsletter as well?
Yeah, so you can sign up for my email list on Instagram. Pretty much everything is on Instagram for me, but definitely you can sign up through my website too.
Excellent. And if you'd like to make a material donation to the show here today, there's a little $sign in the chat that's called a super chat or a super sticker. That helps support everything we do here, and that keeps the lights on and the books flowing into the office, and the air conditioner back here keeping me from dying in the 93-degree heat today. So yes, I appreciate all of that. And if you want to make a donation after the fact, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. All right, my friends, that's the business out of the way for the day. We have, let's see, we've got a new name in here. Villa dos Lobos. Villa dos Lobos. Is that right? Villa?
Yeah, Villa dos Lobos. It's Susana. Hi, Susana.
Hello, friend. Coming from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Is this someone that you are familiar with?
Yeah, one of the people in my community. She's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome, friend. And we're trying to build a really interesting community here. So feel free to share your ideas in the chat. We always love hearing from people. Okay, Portia, what do you think? We've got a full moon on August the 11th, which is a Thursday in most areas at 9:35 Eastern at 19 degrees of Aquarius, in the second decan of Aquarius, and the sun is in the second decan of Leo. And you are an Aquarius sun, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got
it's like 0 degrees.
Okay. So your first decan Aquarius sun, and then what are your other big three?
So Scorpio rising and Capricorn moon.
Nice. Yeah. So this is something I like to do on the show, is bring people that have some experience with these placements. So what do you think? Big picture thoughts about this full moon. Do you want me to pull the chart up, or?
Yeah, that'd be really helpful. So I feel, well, first, I like to focus and you kind of meditate on the Leo season, or the sun in Leo, and that intention there, just what's been coming up, and thinking about the archetype of the sun in Leo, the sun being very strong in Leo at home. What's been coming through for this Leo season is really authenticity, which is something that I pick up on every Leo season. But in this particular season, 2022, it's been commitment and loyalty, but loyalty to yourself, your authenticity, your inner truth. And so with this full moon, naturally, the moon essentially is going to reflect that in some way, or embody that, or fill up with that energy. And it's interesting because Aquarius is also very authentic and connected to self. But with Leo, there's an intention to shine and share that. And with Aquarius, it's more so, it's like it wants to shine and share, but it's kind of resistant to that.
Sure.
At least in my own perspective, that's something I've had to really like make an effort to do. Even though I do it, it's not comfortable at all. So
Yeah. Aquarius being the domicile of Saturn, sometimes the Saturn being associated with darkness rather than light of the Leo sun, right? And trying to, figure out how to shine your light, even if you're not getting the feedback or the applause. Is that something that you've had to experience in your life? I've had a lot of Aquarian clients or friends where they kind of had to do what was in alignment with their truth, but they didn't always get the appreciation that they needed at the time.
yeah, I definitely have experienced that just with my upbringing. I've kind of always been rebellious, not in necessarily like a bad way, but I just don't like, I won't do what status quo, or I guess the consensus, it's like, you have to go to school, you have to get married, have a family, do this 9 to 5. Like when I graduated from college, I was 30.
Wow.
It took me some time to really I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it on my own terms now.
Yeah.
Like now I'll do it since no one cares anymore. And so it definitely has been me just like doing what I want to do. But it's like, I have a vision. With Aquarius, there's always a vision. There's always an idea that is outside of societal norms. And you might not be privy to what that idea is, or what that even means, essentially. But it means something. Like what I'm doing as an astrologer, my family still doesn't really get what I do.
Sure.
But I see the bigger picture, and I see how this is going to help rebuild community. And I feel like this Leo season, and just even this year in itself, there's an orientation towards rebuilding. And it comes with that destruction, of course.
Absolutely. Man, there's so much good Aquarius themes that are coming out of that story. I love the success coming a little bit later in life. That's so Saturnian. Like Saturn does give gifts, but it happens over time, and it happens through hard work, through persistence, through endurance. I love the fact that you were able to stay true to yourself, even in the face of maybe some backlash from your family and things like that. Like that's Aquarius 101 right there. It says, okay, it's for the good of the whole and for the community, even if some people don't understand in the moment. And I really love that. I love hearing those success stories. To me, that is the ultimate success, is when you've been able to overcome maybe some of that negative feedback and still do what is in alignment with your truth. I love that. So I'm excited, Okay, so we've got this Aquarius opposition. I love that word, authenticity. I totally agree that Leo season feels like trying to me, that authenticity, integrity reflects being the same person internally and externally, right? So where you're kind of saying, okay, I have this belief, and my life is going to reflect that belief, rather than me trying to put on a different mask for show or something of that nature. So that second decan of Leo, I was kind of talking about this with you. I'm going to stop the share for a second so we can look at the tarot. Is that cool?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So we're looking at the opposition of two sixes in the tarot, right? The 6 of Wands and the 6 of Swords. Mm-hmm. And the sixes are associated with a decan called Tiferet. And Tiferet has to do with the sun and balance and the center of the tree of life, and sort of this kind of harmonious expression. So sixes generally tend to be sort of a little bit easier than some of the other cards, especially the fives. Your sun is in the 5 of Wands or 5 of Swords decan, right? Which is a little bit more like that's a challenging decan, right? But we've got this figure here, right? And he's kind of coming home on a parade. He's got this crown of laurels, like Austin Coppock likes to say. Any initial thoughts about this particular card and how this has come up for you? I also want to, don't let me forget this. I love the way that you pull tarot. You kind of do a lot of like card mixing and like cards just fall out and you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, I didn't used to do that. That's like something new as of the past, probably like 2 or 3 years.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
I love the synchronicity and just like letting kind of spirit just take the wheel with that. But what's some of your experiences of this card been when it's come up for you or for clients or things like that? Because this is where the sun is. And I look at that as like a solar intention that we may be aware of, that we may be trying to infuse into a lunar body here.
Yeah, with that card, whenever I see it, it feels like it's this warm feeling. It feels inspiring, and it's just like almost like this sigh of relief, or like we did it. I do read that card too, as there's like more work to be done. Like it's like a minor success, or you've made some kind of achievement at this point, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. Or yeah, so it's kind of like keep going. It's recognizing, us or you for the achievements and the work that you have done. Especially coming from the Five of Wands, where it's more like a battle, or it's like this disorganized energy or even chaos. Once you get to the number 6, yeah, it's like alignment or it's balance. Yeah. And so I really connect with that. Yeah, it's just kind of like cleaning up after kind of some disruption or some sort.
So we started off our new moon cycle with the Wands version of that 5 energy, right? We're competing with one another, competition, trying to establish ourselves and our authenticity. And maybe here, like you were saying, we've had a success, we've had a victory. They actually call this card victory in the Book of Thoth and Book T, right? One little tidbit I thought was really fascinating. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. In the research I was doing for Leo 2, they talked about Triumphus, which was a lavish parade celebrating the commander of a significant military victory. So kind of like this king for a day type of thing. But it's not just about coming home after a success. It's also coming home to make a sacrifice to the temple of Zeus, which I thought was pretty interesting. Of saying, okay, we've had a success, but we're going to share our success and honor, I don't know, the creator, maybe even in that way of thinking of things, because this is a double Jupiter ruled decan, whereas we have the moon in a double Mercury ruled decan here. Where do you think in our current time frame we are celebrating a victory, and what kind of things do we need to still work on?
Yeah. So much.
This could be a long conversation.
Yeah, I feel it's interesting. I feel that with the Mars conjunction with Uranus, that actually to me maybe not right away. It doesn't feel like success or victory or breakthrough, but I do feel that it is. I mean, when you think about a conjunction, it's a new beginning. And so I've been trying to look at that transit from that perspective versus like, oh my goodness, it's like the tower moment or like chaos and destruction, which it can be. But if you're already in like a focused mindset and you're preparing for that, I feel it can be more constructive. And I feel that with the energy of that card, and right now it feels like we've had a breakthrough. Even though it may not necessarily be visible or tangible right now. And we want to really, honor ourselves for that, or just even honoring where we are at this moment. It could be a lot worse. And so that's what I kind of feel with that energy. As far as what we can work on, I mean, we still have there's still like a long journey. Oh, yeah. And we can all point to something. So.
Yeah, Raven's saying in the chat, speaking of triumph, Kansas successfully voted not to adopt devalue them both. I'm trying to unpack that sentence. I think what Raven's basically saying is that Kansas voted to preserve reproductive rights in Kansas recently in this latest primary election, which that kind of feels like the parade that's a short-lived victory, but still more work to be done, like a primary election that is just like anticipating maybe the bigger election in November potentially. Yeah. So that could be some of our energy. That also brings to mind some of the legislation we've been seeing kicking around about climate change, or there might be the inkling of some ability to pass a big bill that would be in support of funding to help combat climate change. It's not passed yet, but maybe we're getting close to doing something, right? You used to live in Maryland for a little while, correct?
Mm-hmm. Maryland and DC, yeah.
You're pretty plugged into all that.
Unfortunately, I mean, moving to Colorado, that was like my way of distancing myself from that, because it can be a lot, especially when you're in the capital, like just the capital of the country, like the city, and you just feel like everything that's happening, you can, I mean, at least for me, I'm very energetically sensitive. Like I feel it around me, literally. And so I could feel like the pressure, the worries, the anxiety, like all of it, you know, in the city. And so it can be really, really intense. But I definitely like these little just like insights or occurrences or just things changing where it's like, oh, there's some hope. And just that little bit even is that inspiring energy of, I feel like the Six of Wands, the Sun in Leo, and the Deccan too. I really feel that energy pretty strongly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Welcoming a few more friends here in the chat here, Portia. We've got Mary stopping in. I think this is another friend that you've brought along. Yes, excellent. All right. Welcome, Mary. And we have, let's see who else. Raven is stopping in. Rachel is here from Ireland. Yes, we've got, I believe Rachel is a fellow Aquarius. I could be wrong here. I'm trying to remember everybody's placements from the chat. But okay, so yeah, we've got this maybe temporary victory here potentially, but here we're going to see that energy of authenticity being infused into the body of the moon with this Six of Swords card. So in this card, we see a figure ferrying maybe a mother and a child. I get the feeling of like refugees in this card.
Yeah, I was getting that too when I was looking at it last night.
So we've got what I thought was really kind of a nice comparison. We've got a homecoming and then maybe a leaving, home into the unknown, because remember this Six of Swords follows this conflict here. They call this card defeat. So maybe it's like, oh, okay, well, we've got to figure out something else now. It's a Mercury rule card. We have Austin Cabot calls it heaven and earth. T. Susan Chang calls it celestial navigation, which I love that word for it.
Yeah.
What are some of your feelings and thoughts with this card here and these images and what we may maybe some of the actions that we can take to maybe embody the solar intention?
Yeah, well, just seeing those two cards like next to each other, it definitely spoke to me as the duality that exists within just where we're like as a whole, as a collective, like the entire planet. Like there's some people that are in that successful part of their life or experience. And then there's some people who's in this like, refugee, like we have to get away, we have to move on kind of energy. And so I feel like honestly though, for the Six of Swords, the word that came out for me last night when I was making notes was recovering. And with it in a Mercury ruled decan, right? You said Mercury. Yeah. There's that, it's bringing me to that feeling of organization or like restructuring or getting a plan through the experience. Even if we're in a successful, part of our life, we still want to, again, we have to do more. So we want to start to organize and plan. And so that moving on is like being in the moment with the joy and the success, but also moving on or moving forward to get organized for all of the other work that, or any other challenges that might be coming through as well.
Absolutely. Some authors have spoken of this card, and this decan is related to problem solving. So, I like that. I like the feeling of maybe utilizing our power or our, integrity, our energy to be able to share with maybe those that aren't as fortunate right now, right? That are suffering. Because like you said, a lot of people are being displaced from their homes right now due to all sorts of challenges, due to, conflicts between countries and leaderships, due to climate change and things getting really hot in various areas. So there might be a time where, we need to be able to kind of unify to help people out that are in exile at this point. Like that's something that, as I was studying traditional astrology, that have come up for Saturn a lot is, people on the fringes of society, people that are living in exile rather than within the castle walls, right? Like this is kind of like maybe even being the ultimate insider versus like helping out the quote unquote outsiders, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is really fascinating. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the daimons. First of all, before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about the square that's going on in this chart.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a good place to start. So we've got the opposition between the sun and the moon. Remember, full moons are always oppositions between the two lights. And then we have a third party in here with Uranus in the north node and Mars, creating this big old T-square. So what are you thinking about Uranus in the mix here?
I just feel there's just impatience, like wanting to really get it done, I feel all of us, or, the majority, we really want change. We really have like these big ideas. And of course, naturally, we're met with resistance, and it does take time. It takes planning, it takes strategy. This is like a long kind of a game. This isn't like, yeah. So that's what I feel with that. I just feel like there's impatience. Where I see this Taurus, like Uranus and Mars in Taurus, that's where essentially I would say the breakthrough happened. Mm-hmm. And when I think about just the Taurus energy with Uranus there, whenever Uranus is activated or triggered in some way, I feel like it's like really getting deep in the dirt, like in the roots of a tree. Yeah, I just always think about replanting, but I'm thinking about the actual earth and like just digging through that. And if it's dry, if it's just like old dirt, it's going to take a lot to really like finesse and caress that and just get things flowing, like adding a little bit of water and like nutrients and just nourishing that. It takes time, but I feel there's like this anxious energy with that particular placement, like in between the two.
And Portia, I'm curious if you or even people in the chat here, how they experience the Mars Uranus North Node. If I kind of was speaking about potential disruptions to our routines and to the foundations of what makes us feel secure, and I'm curious if anyone out there had some of that happen. I know in our house we had a little bit of a COVID scare because my partner's couple of her coworkers tested positive, so we had a quarantine for about 4 or 5 days to make sure that she didn't test positive. So that was our Mars Uranus North Node disruption of routine moment. Anything come up for you during that period of time?
Yeah, I would say it was more so, yeah, like the weekend, like before, like Thursday or Friday. It was just because this is in my seventh house. So it's definitely intimate relationships with my partner, with my family. There was just a lot of like frustration and not like seeing eye to eye on things.
Sure.
And, I just had to kind of breathe through it and detach even like almost that Aquarius energy that I'm so good at, where I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to like withdraw. You do you, I'm going to do me for now. And then we'll figure this out when it's aligned. And I feel by doing that, which is different than probably what I usually do, it wasn't so bad. Like I had time to kind of sit with the energy. And by the time the actual like exact conjunction happened, it was like, I kind of had an aha moment, which could be pointing to that North Node too, of like how, like what changed and how my behavior changed and how to move forward with that.
I love that detachment as a remedy for that martial energy. That's That's something that I've been trying to practice here. I don't know if you've been listening to the show, Portia, you know that I have a 18-year-old daughter that's trying to assert their independence pretty strongly, which is testing my patience. And I know you got a little girl, right? But it's coming. Like, maybe not today, but someday. And yeah, you know, during that kind of spicy time, you know, especially with the extra stress of being separated from my partner, and I inherited a lot of more responsibility in the house. Like usually she's an incredible chef, and she does a good portion of the cooking, and I had to learn how to do the cooking for a few days and like keep everything together. And there was a little bit of tension with me and my daughter here and there. My partner is also a good like peacemaker between the two of us, but every once in a while I had to just go to my separate corner. You know what I'm saying? I had to go in my office and just be like, all right, I got to chill out. And I think that's totally a legitimate way to deal with some of these super challenging times. Is okay, it's okay to take a time out. You know, you don't have to solve every problem in the moment. And sometimes cooler heads can prevail after recentering, right? Have you found that in your circumstance?
Yeah, especially with the North Node there, because it can just like get out of hand with that Mars energy. It's like, I just want it now, you know? Yep. So yeah, I feel as long as there's like a peaceful separation where, you know, I've learned to even say, okay, I need to just breathe.
Yeah.
So, and that's very helpful. Like I've learned to not just, you know, go away, but just taking a moment. It's like, okay, we can revisit this when we're not in the heat of the moment, and we can actually have some time to breathe and think. That's been very, very helpful with these transits for sure.
Yeah, you can't avoid the issue itself forever. You have to deal with it. But like you were saying, like being able to get yourself back to that place of peace and calm, and then maybe the actions that you take to solve the problem are more in alignment with our higher selves, right? Than the martial energy of like, we're just going berserk. You know, like, that's fun. All right, Portia, we've got a couple comments coming in here. We've got we've got Christopher's joining us from Denver, so your old stomping grounds here. I had some nice chats with Christopher recently about food and one thing I will say, I had a really delicious sandwich when the first day that my partner was in quarantine, and I kind of talked about it with Christopher, and it was like a peak memory that was related to a memory I'd had with my mom on a vacation eating Cuban food, and it was nice. I wanted to tell everybody because this is my Taurus moon coming out. Just forgive me for this digression, but I had Venus conjoining my natal sun, and had one of the best meals I've ever had. You know, I was like, and then somebody told me, one of my friends was like, "You fell in love with a sandwich," and I was like, "You're right." Like,
right? I did see it on your Instagram story.
Yeah, Venus will find a way. I had a Cubano sandwich for the first time ever, and it was authentic. It was very, very good. So anyway, but I digress. So friends, we have Galactic Center is joining us here today. Welcome. I believe that's Yevgen. Nice to see you, friend. Kate is blowing love to us from somewhere. Fiat says, my Uran Maru. I like that word. Is that what people are calling it? Uran Marahu? Right. My Marahu experience was two family members going to doing extreme sports in the sky. Oh my goodness. That would scare the shit out of me. If someone was doing that during Mars Uranus.
Capricorn here. I'm like, I'm good.
Yep. Yeah. And another family getting an unexpected health scare. Oh, I'm sorry, Fiona. I hope everything is okay with that. Yeah, there's been a lot of changes. Like we had a number of people kind of leave the planet during that time too. NBA great Bill Russell, who was a great civil rights activist and one of the greatest, I guess, champions of all time, won 11 championships with the Boston Celtics, passed away over the weekend, as well as Uhura from Star Trek, another person who was a really pivotal figure in media through the 60s and 70s. So we lost some great people, as well as Ursula, from the voice of Ursula from The Little Mermaid. I don't know if you
nice. So, I love her.
So yeah, we had some people leaving the planet, and a lot of changes going on.
Yeah.
So let's see, I'm looking through the comments. Mary says, like mining coal, we are filtering our gems and leaving behind what's no longer required, a time to customize and tailor our own ways for that specific time. I agree, Mary. That's a great observation. Rachel says, I found it strangely quiet during the conjunction, but the week prior I had my first bout of COVID. Oh no, Rachel.
No.
This variant it's very contagious.
Everybody. Yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
is.
crazy.
It's going around for sure. It is very challenging still. Generally crazy time taking care of a family member who was unwell with the virus too. I'm sorry, Rachel. I hope that you're doing well. Wish you good health and a speedy recovery for everyone. Let's see. That we got so many great comments. I'm just kind of looking through here. Hello, Remco. Nice to see you, friend from the Netherlands. Let's see. Looking. Oh yeah, Raven said the sandwich looks so good. It was Raven. It was so good. Just, I'm gonna remember that experience for a long time. You got to take little victories when you're a hermit that doesn't leave your house very much. Like a wonderful new meal and new experience. I think that's the thing. Portia, I wonder if you can comment on this too. Like, because our worlds, I think, have gotten so much smaller on some level during the pandemic, little experiences like that of new novelty just become, I feel so much gratitude for them when I have something new like that. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had my daughter at the end of 2019. So it was December 2019. And then we promptly moved to Syracuse, New York. And so I didn't really know anyone. And then a couple months later, we were in a pandemic. So it's like postpartum, like new mom. I was already probably stuck in the house anyways, but yeah, it's just, my whole life changed and I felt a bit isolated, which I have no problems, being at home. Like, it's really hard to get me to go out anywhere these days or in general. So yeah, whenever I have those, fresh moments or I go out in nature, my thing is like going out for walks at the park and like I'll see an animal. Like this year I saw a really big snake, which I haven't seen like a big snake in years. I saw a tortoise, just all different kinds of like random animals. And those are the things that really light me up, these days to see that. So.
I love that. And that was so true at the beginning of this whole extravaganza of the pandemic. When people just weren't driving at all, like the animals started to kind of reclaim some of their territory. That was a really, that was so beautiful. And I hope that we can continue to facilitate a little bit of that for sure. And I agree. Walks are a great way to stay healthy during this time and start to appreciate the transitions in nature and whatnot. I'm all about that for sure. Welcoming a few friends from Finland. Susanna is here and Tarja is here. Hello, friends. We've had some spicy moments here from people reliving their Mars-Uranus North nodes. Oh no, I'm sorry, Tarja, that you had an argument with the family. And Kate's been purging their hoarder paradise. That's good. That's a great way to use Mars-Uranus, right? Get rid of stuff. Okay, Laura is here too. Welcome, Laura. Maybe our Leo risings. Yeah. What are you referring to there, Laura? With purging yes, definitely. I've been doing a lot of purging in my house also. So yes, definitely that may be something with our Leo ascendants. But I think just in general, I think this is a great time to let go of things that don't serve us and our authenticity, like you were saying, Portia. A lot of the times when we're shifting our consciousness, the things and the people and the circumstances around us have to shift with us. And if we hold on to those old narratives and those old reminders, that can keep us stuck in that old story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Portia, this is one of the things I like about Aquarius. Joy Usher is somebody that I really appreciate, her book, Tiny Uterus, and she talks about the Saturn in Aquarius and that the limitations that Saturn provides. In addition to the physical limitations in Capricorn, we have these kind of mental structures that we're trying to build. And she calls it the glass ceiling, where we may create an idea that creates boundaries in our life. Like I'm thinking of like laws that govern civilizations on some level, right? Which really resonates with me. Does that resonate with you with Aquarius? And have you experienced that in your own life about trying to overcome maybe your own narrative limitations?
Yeah, definitely. And it's really interesting because, I started studying astrology with modern astrology. And, I did feel some aspects of the Uranus as the ruler, that connection, more so just in the rebellious nature.
Mhm.
But then once I learned of that Saturn connection, the Saturn rulership, it definitely made just more sense to me because just from my own experience as a young one, I just always felt that I'm like, there's a better way to do this, or there's like a better way for society. Even when I would say 18, 17, 18, 19, I was really active in politics. Like I was doing a lot of activist projects and things like with climate change, just environmental communities and things of that nature. And so there's always been this sense of like structuring or re-governing society in a sense,
Yeah.
which I feel is kind of overlooked with Aquarius. Like it's there, like those humanitarian endeavors, but it's not really like a big focus, which I think it actually really is with that Saturn rulership specifically.
I agree. And Saturn can be forward thinking. It doesn't necessarily have to be retroactive looking. I think sometimes, I think Saturn and Capricorn may be trying to preserve structures on some level, but Aquarius, it's definitely like, hey, what's good for the future? What new
Yeah.
world can we create on some level? I think.
Yeah.
So we do have what I find interesting about this full moon, Portia, is that we do have Uranus in the conversation here as well. So even if we're not necessarily using Uranus as a ruler for Aquarius in this point, and some people still do, and I don't have a problem with that if that's what works for your astrological practice. But we do have Uranus just on its own, kind of throwing a little bit of a monkey wrench into this, this opposition, where we have, to me, Uranus, is that Prometheus energy, right? Where we're trying to steal fire from the gods and we're trying to bring something new into existence, but it's not an easy transition. It's one in that Prometheus story. Prometheus was severely punished for trying to bring something of value to humanity. So here, this disruptive energy is in that second decan of Taurus, where it is about our routines. It is about how we deal with resources. It's that Six of Pentacles energy, where how we distribute resources too. Like kind of, I'm thinking of like charitable foundations, social support systems on some level too. So we have this tension between really needing to deal with our resources in a different way. We've got our authenticity with Leo and the sun, and our need to move forward with the second decan moon in Aquarius. What are some of your thoughts about the moon kind of hanging out with Saturn here? It's really close to Saturn in this chart.
It is. I really like it. Those two very close because I feel the moon is taking on that intention of the sun in Leo.
Yeah.
And now it's meeting up with Saturn to essentially, it's like almost presenting this to Saturn. It's like, here's the intention, here's a plan. I do associate the moon with embodiment as well.
Sure.
And so meeting with Saturn, it's kind of basically presenting or reflecting even that intention to Saturn, and that Saturn's pretty much that the authority on what happens, or if this is actually going to manifest essentially, because the moon is in the house of Aquarius or ruled by Saturn.
Yeah.
And so I definitely feel Saturn's kind of like the end all be all, like, is this really going to happen? How do we move forward? Or it's going to at least assist in that planning and restructuring, which is really, really important. And being an Aquarius, there is this visionary aspect, like what do we see for the future to better society or to
Right.
better our current environment, is I feel is what that energy is there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're coming off of a pretty intense square between Mars and Saturn a few days prior to this full moon too. So we're kind of, I feel almost like we're going to be recovering from whatever frustrations we had coming into the weekend leading up to it. So that could be part
It's
of the,
almost like I feel I'm just like poor Saturn, which is like no one feels bad for Saturn. I've learned to love Saturn. I have Saturn on my ascendant in
yeah,
Scorpio, so it's been a whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Saturn's getting a lot of heat, which naturally it probably should. Like, let's get things moving. And then
right.
Saturn's also retrograde, so it's already
It's
moving
true.
slow and like kind of revisiting, reviewing things. And, you know, Uranus and Mars want to just get to it, let's go. And with the sun and Leo, it's that divine intelligence and inspiration, to move forward or to assist. But Saturn's there kind of like, well, let's like really thoroughly evaluate what's happening right now and do things the right way. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Saturn is my time lord for the year. So I've been I've been dealing with some Saturn issues this year. A lot of endings. Yeah, just half of my maternal family just passed away basically in the last year. I've had three very important family members in the last 3 months of a Saturn perfection year in the seventh house. I really do associate Saturn, or it's both Saturn and the seventh house in general with endings and with completion. So just really living that right now. And I'm getting to know Saturn quite a bit as far as a level one zodiacal releasing time lord as well. I'll tell you what, I shifted from professional music to astrologer right as that Jupiter was moving to Saturn.
Wow.
It's like, oh, you're everywhere, like, being Johnny on the spot social guy. And then when that Saturn level one time lord hit, it was like, oh, it's time for you to just study in your office and get serious.
Wow. What a transition. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. I really have felt it, but I'm learning to appreciate Saturn, and like you are speaking of, it does bring gifts after hard work, after maybe delayed gratification, after thinking about what is good for the whole on some level as well, rather than just glorification of the self. I think that's one of the things that Saturn can teach us, is that we're trying to I keep thinking of the indigenous axiom of how are your actions going to affect the next 7 generations, right?
Yeah.
To me, that's so Saturnian.
Yeah. I definitely correlate Saturn also to just like ancient teachings, wisdom, like esoteric teachings, just things that are like timeless.
Yeah.
I do feel that Saturn is connected to time and has a representation of that, but it's also very discerning about what is carried over through, the generations through time. And I feel Saturn has that discipline to really filter out what's not working, what's not serving truth, what's not authentic.
Right.
And yeah, so that's why I really have learned to enjoy Saturn's energy. I really didn't have a choice. So
right. Saturn doesn't give you a choice. It binds you to that. It says, all right, it's time to sober up. Here's the reality. Get to it. Like serve or suffer is kind of the mantra on some level. Okay, so we're coming off of that Mars Saturn square. I talked about this in my monthly and with Janet Goodspeed. I wanted to call her Janet Goodsigil. That's the name of her business, Goodsigil. But I was talking about potential for maybe some more natural disasters or droughts, because the last time we saw that aspect in those decans, we had a super crazy drought in the 30s. And we are seeing that. We're seeing wildfires picking up on the West Coast, where we are experiencing crazy heat waves recently, and probably will be into this next weekend. So again, I do hope for all of you out there that you're able to maintain your safety and stay cool and able to deal with all the challenges that will present. But we have Mars now hanging out at this full moon on a fixed star called Algol, which has a pretty notorious reputation in astrology and in fixed star mythology. Do you have any experiences with Algol or thoughts?
I just learned of Algol back when you did that Scorpio, was it the full moon Scorpio eclipse?
Yeah.
But that was my first time actually hearing and learning about it. I was definitely fascinated. But just what I noted and what I've been learning is that with Mars there, it just seems to amplify that energy of impatience and frustration and just like really like wanting to bust out, bust free and, be liberated and just be in the moment. And yeah, it's just not
Yeah,
able.
I agree. I think it could, like you were saying, it could really feed into that need to want to break away, to move on. And I think it's really important, like we were talking about earlier in the show, to maybe try to remain calm, to get in touch with our feminine power. I mean, some of the more positive takes on Algol talk about it being a protective star and getting in touch with kind of Kundalini energy and things of that nature. But the downside is, yes, it was the severed head of Medusa, where we could literally, quote unquote, lose our heads. So we have to make sure that we're staying in touch with our maybe our more rational side with the moon conjoining Saturn and in Aquarius and seeing the big picture and maybe using the intellect on some level while not ignoring our instinctual desires as well. Portia, let's take a look at the chat and see what we've got here. We've got, okay, our Finnish friends are stopping in, right? We've got, Kate says, let me see, Kate. I feel like this full moon is a special cosmic gift. I did intentionally plan a spiritual retreat with astrology that actually moved the date. Oh, well, that'll be fun. This full moon will be a fun time to do that. Let's see. Mary saying people will feel triggered by Saturn. Yeah, I think so. Slowly.
Yeah. It's just a lot of holdups, I feel.
Yeah, and I agree. And we're going to see an opposition of the sun perfecting to Saturn as well. So I do think that like you were pointing out, feeling restrictions, feeling like you're maybe banging your head against the brick wall, that may be part of this full moon as well. And again, is going to require patience and delayed gratification. And we might not be able to do everything that we want to do right away. And to be honest with you, I think that what I see in this is I don't think that we're necessarily going to get the victory parade or the applause for doing the right thing, right?
Yeah.
And that can be really difficult, especially speaking as a Leo ascendant. It's not fun. Like, that's not something that is exciting for Leo placements. But being able to balance that out with saying, well, you got to do the right thing, whether someone's watching or applauding or giving you a pat on the back is important. And that's the way that we create functional societies, is not necessarily having to always, I don't know, be loved for every single thing that we're doing, right?
It's that self-validation.
Exactly.
I feel like that's a thing for Leos, that intention or the lesson, even where it's like striving to really cultivate your own self-validation or self-realization, even just so, yeah. And then by doing that and just connecting to your own inner light, naturally that's going to radiate from you and you will receive the validation like in itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some other great comments here. Yevgen is our sort of boots on the ground with Ukraine on some level. He has family members in Ukraine. I believe Yevgen is from Ukraine. So Yevgen is saying, hello from my 3 Ukrainian refugee family members who are Gemini ascendants and my little nephew Aquarius ascendant in the 6 of Swords ascendant, where he has the Sun and Mercury in this decan. They are still stuck in Bulgaria.
Oh, wow.
Wow, yeah. So you and your family are living that, Yevgen, or your family is, with being refugees from their homeland. So it's just so fascinating to me to see the symbols lived out in real time and heartbreaking. And I mean fascinating in a oh my God, that's right. I can't even imagine. And I my heart is going out to you, Yevgen, and I keep checking in with all of your stories and stuff because I can. I think we're a little bit sheltered here in America from some of those things. Yeah. I've heard people say that Americans always see every war as a foreign war, and I think that on some level that feels true, which it's not, because these conflicts have global effects. But it's very different being exiled from your home rather than watching it on the news. So I just hope everything's going okay with you and your family again. Okay. Portia, let me see. We've gotten through some good stuff here. We've talked about Leo 2. We've talked Aquarius 2. What do you say we talk about some of the daimons of these decades? So I'm going to stop my share here and we'll bring those cards back out. So we've got Isis for Leo 2 and Phobos for Aquarius 2. Tell me about Isis, because you have some really, it sounds like you have some firsthand experience with working with that deity.
Yeah, Isis, I feel I was really connected with her right away when I started getting into just Egyptian mythology, which is a whole thing. There's just so many gods, like it's such an expansive pantheon. And with Isis, the very first thing with Isis was definitely balance. That was a very big theme, I would say. But you and I discussed the connection with the Six of Wands, which I was kind of like, how is that connected? And we spoke about the basically the mythology of, or the story of Isis tears replenishing the Nile. So there's that essence of that abundance or just success after, like, say, a drought or just a really hard time. Yeah. And her energy, or just her, that connection was able to really, bring that abundance, I guess, if that makes sense. But what I was really getting with the diamonds was, and just their connection to the astrology, it really makes me think of the act of appeasing the gods. Mm-hmm. And so during that time, or during this time, you could say Leo season, Decan 2, this is the heat of the sun, the potency of the sun. So there is more of a tendency for drought. So this is the time where they potentially would make an offering to Isis, just to bring forth that energy of abundance or success, or just rejuvenation even. And I feel really like that was really important at that time, which is why they would associate Isis with that particular decan.
So that could be a remediatory action we could take, maybe doing some ritual prayer to Isis to bring back fertility, right? During the challenging summer months. Yeah, I love that. And I, some of the other things I think about Isis is resurrection, right? There's some myths about Isis trying to collect the pieces of her husband, right? And collect it up together.
Osiris was killed by Set, I believe, exactly, prior to this decan, or just prior to this part in the story. And Isis was really upset. And so she was gathering his body parts to bring them back together. Yeah. And she was successful in that. And in that moment of gathering her body parts is when, like, the tears were flowing. And through that process and that dedication, the Nile filled with her tears, and Osiris was reborn. So there's that element of resurrection there.
Yeah. It was temporary though, right? Like, because Osiris, I believe he was resurrected just long enough for Isis and Osiris to mate and then and have a child, right? And then Osiris had to go into the underworld and was like, all right, I'm the lord of the underworld now. So maybe we're gathering information with Isis to be able to give birth to something new in the collective consciousness. If we contrast that resurrection theme and return of fertility with Isis, this Phobos decan I thought was really interesting, or this daimon. Phobos was the son of Ares, the god of war, one of the twin sons, which is basically related to panic that soldiers would experience in battle. They call it panic to rout, and I had to look that word up because it's not one that I use very often. I not in a lot of military conflicts, so I don't know. But rout is basically like I'll read the definition: panicked, disorderly, undisciplined retreat after loss of leadership and authority in battle. So I think that the thing that we could experience is here with, like, I'm trying to connect all the pieces here. We've got a shock from Uranus and Mars. We've maybe had a no with Mars and Saturn, and the sun opposite Saturn, where we are frustrated, and we have to kind of gather all the pieces like Isis to birth something new, instead of, and we may be tempted with this moon to have this completely disorganized, panicked effort. Does that make sense?
Yeah, especially with the moon and the full moon in Aquarius, where it's again that energy of organization, restructuring, especially conjunct Saturn. I think
Yeah.
that's really, really important to not panic.
Right.
And again, that just energy of appeasing the gods, which I feel like Phobos, maybe you can't really appease that energy, but the way you can work with it or navigate that energy is by just being prepared and by being like creating some kind of method or strategy to move forward in case, just preparing for any challenging times that may arise.
Absolutely. That's a great Saturn mantra. Be prepared. Right.
Right.
There you go. I love it. Okay. Let's see here. Mary says, I believe that the fertility is high at this present time for many. I feel this card came in for this reason. Well, yeah, be careful with if you're what your intentions are.
Very good.
Right. So if you're wanting to have a baby right now, then okay, they will have a
this is
fertile
definitely
time.
moving into the harvest season too.
There you go.
So
There you
it's
go.
it's naturally flowing to that.
Excellent. But if that's not your intention, use your Saturnian boundaries.
Prepared.
There you go. Be prepared. Exactly. All right. So we've covered. The other thing we should mention about Isis is that she was a daughter of Ra, who was a sun god. So,
Yeah, so she's part of the solar
yeah.
part of the pantheon, which is, I feel like they bounce back and forth. It's really interesting. It's really complex, their system, but yeah, she's a solar goddess.
Nice.
And then she has that divine mother aspect, which is the fertility, the abundance. So yeah.
I love that because you're right. The daimons of Leo, and I'm doing this as I'm doing my research for the Decans of Leo webinar, August the 20th, Saturday. I always feel so silly promoting stuff, but you have to do that. So the daimons, Hephaestus, Isis, and then Serapis, I think is how you say it. Hephaestus makes sense with Saturn and the fire and the forge and the anvil and the pressure to create something and to become your authentic self. But then Isis and Serapis, I was like, wow, those are strange ones. But like we were saying, Isis is a daughter of Ra, is a solar deity. Serapis was also a solar deity as well. So all of these do fit with the sun, and I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess the last thing, I think we just touched on it briefly, and this isn't totally my wheelhouse, but we do have these Sephira energy centers. I think of them sort of like chakras, sort of like spiritual themes in the Kabbalistic tree of life. But for these sixes, we have a spiritual center or Sephira called Tiferet. And Tiferet is related to balance, harmony, centeredness. So all of the advice we've been giving today, I think about staying centered and calm and trying to balance out these two things. My astrology teacher, Achuta Baba, said that oppositions in a chart don't always necessarily have to be completely reconciled. Sometimes we have to be able to hold the paradox and realize that they can't always be completely unified. There's something that is like, okay, well, maybe we'll be celebrating one part of our life and maybe we'll be feeling like we're going off in exile in another part. And that's just holding duality, right? Which I think is some wise advice.
Yeah, I just feel like that's the nature of our existence on Earth, is like, I can't see it being like fully like, oh, we're all one, we're peaceful, or maybe we're going to be peaceful, who knows? But there's value in the opposition. There's value in that opposite perspective. Right. And it's really what's most valuable is learning how to balance that in itself and learning how to find your way, towards the middle, but not, be fixed there, I guess you could say. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes we need a little challenge and conflict to be able to appreciate things. I don't know. I think we're always going to be kind of like feeling a little bit of this tension, this push and pull, with just life itself, at maybe being spiritual beings trying to figure out how to deal with this incarnation in a body. That in and of itself is a paradox on some level, trying to work through that duality. But yeah. So let's go back to the chart. Portia, how you doing? You feeling all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Okay. So this is our full moon. What do you say we look at a little bit of some of the astrology through the quarter moon here? I just have on my chart here, if we go forward, we're going to see the sun is going to be making that opposition on the 14th to Saturn. Okay. 13th and 14th, we're going to be feeling that energy. Pray for me. This is the exact degree of my ascendant and descendant axis. So that'll be fun with Saturn being my time lord. So we'll see what's going on with Spence here. But
I'll send you some good vibes on
there
that
you
one.
go. There you go. I think the main thing with this is, those two decans relate to standing your ground and defending your authenticity versus having a plan B and saying, okay, it's time really to go. It's time to really take the leap into the unknown. And this makes sense in my life in particular, because this is going to be about a week out from my daughter moving off to college. So there's just going to be some feelings of finality and staying and going, and the tension between that, I'm sure. Let's see. If we go forward a little bit more, we are going to see, we didn't really talk about Mercury in these charts. We've got a really strong Mercury, right?
Yeah, I definitely like Mercury and Virgo during this time, just to assist in the organization and the planning and just getting, when I think about Mercury and Virgo, I feel it's more of a focus on an internal system and what's like not working. So almost like providing assistance with a detox, essentially, where it's like, okay, this thing isn't working. This is toxic to the circumstance or the situation. Like, let's move this, let's reorganize this, and, bring in this particular aspect to get things kind of working and flowing again. Yeah. So I feel Mercury is definitely going to be some assistance, probably more so to what's going on in Taurus with Uranus and Mars. I feel like it's going to be assisting in that intention or agenda. Sure. So I really, really like that.
Yeah, we've got Mercury in its domicile and exaltation, making a trine to Uranus on the 15th and the 16th. Like you were saying, like creating those new systems, weeding out the inefficiencies in our. I think after this full moon, we'll probably come to some realizations, some clarifications, right? And then Mercury will use those mercurial powers to say, okay, well, how do we get down to brass tacks? How do we get down to business here? We're also going to be experiencing during that time a trine between Venus and Jupiter. So, these two signs have been, these decans here, a lot of them are about establishing sovereignty and personal identity and things like that. So any Venus-Jupiter thoughts here?
I feel it's so like grounded in the individual power and just connecting to your own authority, independence. It feels really, really good to me. Especially I feel this entire year, there's a focus on alignment. This is just how I intuitively connect to even this year being a year 6. Yeah. And so there's a focus on alignment, but what's most important is getting in alignment with ourselves, getting very strong within our authority, getting strong with our purpose, or even trying to understand that, whether like, what's your intention? What do you want? What's valuable for you at this point in your life? And when we get clear with that, then we're able to step into how we can help the collective. But it starts with the self first. And I do like Venus and Jupiter having this connection with Venus and Leo, and Jupiter and Aries. There's just a really good comfort and nurture to our individual selves, or at least there's a pointing to that. So I really, really like that energy.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. I think that it's a great time to be the new you, right? And whatever that is, in whatever role that you're being asked to play in our new collective story, that, man, I'm going through that 100% here, just changing roles from full-time parent to like empty nester.
I'm gonna be free.
I guess.
Really, but
Not, yeah.
like, what are you gonna do with your time now?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I'll probably just keep reading books.
Right?
Like, probably what I've been doing, but yes, it will definitely be a change, and trying to take on those new roles, and also trying to accept others in their new roles, I think, is an important thing to consider around this time as well.
Sure.
It's not enough to just accept yourself in your new manifestation. It's important to give other people the right to do that and be themselves as well. And that's been my biggest lesson, being a parent of a newly hatched adult, is, wow, I have to relate to this person in a completely different way than I have in the past. And I think that's the most challenging thing, is a lot of times we get into the habits of relating to people in a way that we always have, especially when it's really closely bonded. And that can be really challenging, painful, but also educational, and it can really promote growth within your own character by being able to find that acceptance of treating someone differently than you would have in the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's the key for gaining personal respect, is being able to give it, right? Being able to allow that for others as well. So something to consider in that regard. Okay, so that's a couple aspects that we have leading up to this last quarter moon. And we're rounding the bend here. I think we're going to get in under our 2-hour mark here, which is good. Well, we're being very efficient today.
Nice. Saturn ruled.
So here is our last quarter moon on August the 19th, which is sort of I like to consider these existential crises, like where we're letting go of that old cycle and maybe shifting our perspective and trying to consolidate everything we've learned from this cycle. And here we've got a moon Mars conjunction before Mars is switching signs into Gemini for the very long haul, for basically the rest of the year and into the beginning of 2023 with the Mars retrograde. I would love to hear your thoughts on that Mars retrograde here that we are going to be initiating soon.
Man, I don't know. I've been sitting with how this will manifest, or just Mars and Gemini is, I don't know. It's really hard to picture it or envision it for some reason for myself. Maybe because it's ruling my 8th house. So I'm just like, how do I even how is this even tangible? Or how do I put this literally into words? But I think it's like the different perspectives, right? With Gemini, like looking at all of these different perspectives, these different ideas. And as you said, like holding space for, everyone's, authority or authenticity, but it's also the work of coming to some sort of common ground in a sense.
Yeah.
And with Mars, it's definitely going to be tied into our own personal and collective desires and how we want to act on that. So again, I feel with Mars being kind of slowed down a bit at some point and having to reflect and really review these desires and how we want to act moving forward. And it's just I feel bad for Mars, because it's again, it's oh, I can't just be in the moment and do what I want to do. I have to really think about it. I have to communicate, network, and look at all the information before, I act. And then, so it's just, I kind of feel that coming through with Mars and retrograde in Gemini.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a challenging martial year, hasn't it? I mean, Mars going through Taurus is banging up against Saturn the whole time, right? We've got then going into Gemini, it's slowing down and turning retrograde. And here at this last quarter moon, we've got the last gasp of Mars in Taurus at that anaretic degree. So, that last decan of Taurus is a challenging one. I look at that one from my research. A lot of things come up about things that are out of our control, that are bigger than us, like natural disasters, things that we've done maybe too hastily that we have to go and redo, and quote unquote repent for. Repentance is a big theme, like praying for redemption in that decan. The Seven of Pentacles comes up, and there's some history with potato famines and things like that. So there might be themes with that, with trying to figure out how do we deal with our food systems and things of that nature. And then the last decan of Leo is kind of defending the hard won authenticity that you've been working towards throughout this whole cycle. There's a fixed star that sun is on called Alphard, which is in Hydra, and Hydra is, that's kind of about like these toxic energies that we may be experiencing. Like, so I think it's important, especially with the moon hanging out with Mars here, not to get too spicy with your communication, and try to make sure that when you're going and redoing the things that you may have hastily done, to not get too rash. Again, Saturn is the key. We've been talking about this whole thing is slowing down, right? But yeah, with Mars moving through Gemini, I think it's going to be, it's election season, right? And I think that's something that I've been thinking about, where I really dread election season anymore. I'm glad that we have them, and I will say that I don't want to dread them so much that we never have elections, because that is actually under threat right now with the way things are going, with authoritarianism on the rise. I hope that we still have free and fair elections, or even have more free and fair elections, with ending things like gerrymandering and things of that nature. But election season is where everyone's really shouting their opinion and getting angry about other people's opinions. That seems very Mars retrograde in Gemini to me, where everyone's arguing about what they believe, and so I think that my baseline advice for people every time I have one of these shows is going to hold with this: just be kind to people and try to come in alignment with kindness, both to yourself and to others, and realize that other people do have a different opinion sometimes, and some of the questions are life or death issues, some of them aren't. It just feels like a lot of the issues are getting heavier recently. Have you experienced that? Elections used to be like, well, we could have an election, and if we don't win, our candidate doesn't win this time, we'll get them the next time. Now it's like, if the candidate doesn't win, we may never have an election again.
Right, yeah. Right? And it's almost, recently my experience is just like, even if our candidate does win, I don't feel like, I'm not happy with what change has been done. Sure. Of course, I'm going to be grateful. It could be worse, but it takes more than just voting. Yeah. That works for some people, that works for some degree, but it's also, again, about what you do in your local community. It also takes being in your own personal authority, being confident within yourself, your resourceful nature. Just, there's so many different elements. But again, I tend to always bring it back to the self first, and getting very clear and grounded and strong within who it is that you are, so that naturally that's going to create the inspiration to, go in your community and share your, opinions, but hopefully from a space that's grounded and, that's compassionate, essentially. And so I feel with Mars, whatever happens before Mars moves into Gemini, that might even, prompt the reviewing all the different ideas and the different ways we can act on, whatever's coming up, and what our plans are for moving forward. But it definitely, there's multiple ways of doing things, versus like, this is the one way, or this is like the one candidate. It's like, okay, that person is a representative, but what can we continue to do to either support our common intentions with this individual, this candidate, or, in addition to just our connection and rehabilitation to our community and the planet as a whole. So
that's a great point.
Yeah.
Voting is one tool for creating change, but like you were saying, it's just not the only thing. And I love the fact that you're pointing out that those people we are electing to represent our intentions and interests. And I'm thinking of recently there was a bill that was a controversial blockage in the Senate for a burn pit bill for people who had been serving, I believe, in the Middle East, like service people that were being served and having cancer problems from burn pits in these challenging circumstances. And there were some Republican lawmakers that were blocking that legislation. And because of, there was a comedian, Jon Stewart, that was really speaking out and really, really getting a lot of coverage for this through his very passionate speaking out. He put a lot of pressure on those lawmakers and rightfully embarrassed them for withholding health care for sick veterans, and basically shame them into actually passing the legislation. So I think that, like, you know, to speak to your point, voting is the first step. The second step is holding your leadership accountable through your actions and through just, you know, doing things on that local level as well, right? Like doing things within your community, not necessarily always just pointing the finger at your leadership saying, well, what can I do today to do something to help with the changes that need to take place? So you're right, it's a collective effort with all of those types of things. I agree. All right, Portia, this is leading us to a new moon. And we'll just touch on this real briefly, and then we'll get to our divination and we'll call it a day. What do you say?
That sounds great. All right. I'm enjoying myself, so.
Okay, good. Oh, I'm excited that you're here. I'm so happy that.
I was really excited when you shout me out at one of your, I don't remember which live stream it was, but when you offered, you were like, hey, like you should come on the show one time. And I was just like, yeah.
There you go. Good. Well, you know, it's there's so much, there's so many intelligent voices that come to these live streams and in the community itself, that's one of the things I love about this channel, is being able to uplift and promote those voices as well. This is really speaking to my Aquarius South node, is being able to, like, I don't know, be part of the collective and highlight not only my own, you know, thing, but other people's gifts as well. And that's something that makes me really happy. So I'm so glad that you were able to bring your wisdom here. And that's a good point for anybody in the chat here. If you drop some knowledge in the chat box here, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's a great point. Oh, whoa, that's a good one. Maybe one day I'll ask you to come join me on the show, you know? Like, so.
Yeah, I think you do an amazing job of engaging with the live audience. I think that's what I really enjoy, or as a viewer, that was like one of my favorite parts. It's just like, you know, you actually connect and communicate.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, because this is, I changed the format of this channel almost completely. I was making like 4 or 5 videos every week, just me talking into the void, but I started doing these lives every once in a while, and I just really enjoyed it, like connecting with people. So it's definitely my favorite part as well. So thank you. I'm glad that this is becoming people's go-to to have like that interaction in that community. My Taurus moon on the midheaven is very happy and pleased, and my Venus in Gemini in the 11th is excited about all of that.
Oh, nice.
All right, so Portia, we've got, let's take a look at just give people a little dip into the toe of this new moon. We'll have another guest on to talk about this potentially, but we've got a 4-degree Virgo new moon at the 27th of August here. That'll complete this lunation we've been going through. And we've got a funky square from Mars here. What do you think about this new moon real quick?
I mean, I definitely, with this new moon and coming out of Leo season, I feel this is going to be just, again, more of the organizing, planning, probably clearing space. I know Virgo season, I tend to just want to get reorganized and moving things around, and even like dabbling in herbalism and just like being connected to nature and just, earth things. And I feel, or like practical things, I feel more so. And so with this square to Mars, Mars isn't retrograde yet. No, because that's
not yet. No.
Oh yeah. So I think that Mars will, Like there might be some kind of tension in regard to like all the things you want to do. Maybe there's like a deadline coming up, or just, yeah, it's just like, oh, I want to do all the things, but like you only have X amount of time to do this. Or you have to really prioritize. I feel like that might be like the conflict at that point in time, especially with Mercury and Libra, just that needing to like balance. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that you're pointing out like, hey, you might want to do all the things, but you might not be able to. Like, because Mars in that decan, that's the Eight of Swords decan, where we just feel paralyzed by all the different options we have. And it may be, causing us to feel like we need to learn more. That first decan of Virgo is all about like, hey, I'm working hard on my craft. I need to learn more skills. My advice on that is just to pick something, try to do it to the best of your ability, recognize that you don't have to learn everything all at once. I'm just thinking about this in the context of my own family. My daughter will be starting college this week. So her head is going to be spinning of all the new experiences she's going to be going through. It's just like, okay, just concentrate on what you need to get done. That's most important. Try to eliminate all the distractions. That would probably get us through this time period, I think, intact. But Mars in the overcoming square, though, is in Hellenistic astrology, that's a maltreatment in this new moon. So we may feel really a little bit anxious about all the different things that directions we could go potentially. Okay, Portia. We're almost done.
Like, are you awake? Are you here?
Yeah, no, I think this is one of my secret superpowers, Portia, is I have an endurance for talking a lot. I could go for 3 or 4 hours. Nice. As long as I have snacks, I could
nice.
I could talk forever.
Yeah.
Okay. But Portia, let's round out this wonderful talk today with the animal symbol for this lunation and an I-Ching reading. So so you were telling me some interesting facts about the animal that we had, which was the dragonfly. What was some of your experiences with the dragonfly?
No, so it was funny that you just mentioned it, because my partner came home, what was it, the day before, and a dragonfly had just like flown. He works in the back of the kitchen, like he does the prep work. Yeah. And so it flew in the back of the kitchen and no one noticed. He actually noticed, and like everybody started freaking out, and they were trying to like shoo it out or like hopefully not kill it. And then he said that the dragonfly like flew right in front of him and just kind of almost like, you know how they can like kind of hover. So it was doing that. And then it caught a fly like right in front of his face.
Wow.
So I don't know. It was just a really interesting experience that you like brought that up. And it was the animal totem for this particular moon, just the energy right now. So
yeah. Well, would you like to hear some dragonfly facts? I'd say that 10 times fast. Dragonfly facts. There's some funny ones in here. So first of all, and this is just from some basic Google searches, they're very ancient insects. They have been on the earth long before the dinosaurs. So maybe that may be speaking to connecting to ancient wisdom, kind of like Saturn energy, right? Their nymphs live in the water. So they start in that water consciousness of spirit and of emotional place. And then they fly into the air or the more intellectual realm and reflect the light of the divine on their wings. There's themes of illusion that come up with dragonfly, like maybe just this life being an illusion, like Maya, like we talk about, where the spiritual consciousness is the truth, and we're just living in this illusionary consciousness here, which I don't know about that for sure. I like the idea of it because sometimes life itself is hard. I would love to see a different higher reality. But so the dragon nymphs live in the water. Okay, they breathe. The nymphs breathe through their anus. So I'm trying to unpack that one. I thought that was funny. I was like, oh, okay. So it says the damselfly nymph actually breathes through gills inside its rectum. Likewise, dragonfly nymphs pull water into the anus to facilitate gas exchange. When the nymph expels water, it propels itself forward, providing the added benefit of locomotion to its breathing. Okay.
Nice.
So maybe, so here's, I'm trying to think of like how we can bring this into like a symbolism. Maybe we have to like release to go forward. Do you see what I'm saying? We have to like, you know, shoot something like
just like the changing of perspectives or the adaptability of something always being this way, and you know, just be open to it being a little bit different than you would ever imagine possibly.
Yeah, I love it. So it also says that most new dragonfly adults are eaten, so they're prey animals. So that's something to consider when we're looking at animals, whether they're predator or prey, and what that could mean for how we would go about our business. So sometimes if we have prey animals that come up, caution is something that I like to think about, because there could be something that is ready to consume us that we have to be aware of, and we have to use our defense mechanisms, rather than when we have prey animals or predator animals, we may need to pursue something a little bit more rather than receptivity. So they also have excellent vision. So they have those like multifaceted eyes. So that's something to think about on trying to get clear on what the truth is around this period of time. They are masters of flight. So they're like a helicopter. They can fly backwards, they can fly sideways, you know, they can lift off. So be willing to be adaptable and flexible in your movement. I think that's a key point of advice for this, especially for this full moon, because we have a fixed cross, where if you get really, the word I want to use is fixated. It feels redundant, but let's say you get fixated in your position, it can be really hard to move off of that, and that can create a lot of conflicts when you dig your heels in. Male dragonflies fight for territory, so there could be some issues of territorialism with this as well.
That makes sense.
Male dragonflies have multiple sex organs. Process that however you will. Some of them migrate, so that's interesting. This feels like a very migratory card. Yeah, so maybe there's a migration that's happening in our lives personally, or in the collective. And then finally, they thermoregulate their bodies, so they're actually kind of cold-blooded. So they're kind of at the mercy of nature to be able to regulate their body temperature. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at an animal symbolism is, does it create its own heat, or is it at the mercy of the environment? And in this case, we're at the mercy of the environment. So it's another signal to be able to be adaptable, to be able to tune into the energy and try to protect yourself in that regard. So pull some sunshine in, right? Stay warm. Some hope.
I definitely feel that adaptability. That's what I keep thinking about, that as you're saying, like all the different things, and whether it's, you know, like there's some kind of chaotic event happening, or just even just within your mindset, the focus I feel is like adaptability, and even resourcefulness is a big one. And just being also quick-witted, quick-minded as a prey. It's like there's things out to get you, so to speak. And so if you can kind of like
bob and weave
and like quick, you can possibly get out of that.
Yeah, you might have to use your intellect and your problem solving ability to get out of a sticky situation, right? So it's all coming together here. I'm just checking the chat for this dragonfly. We got a lot of great compliments talking about the essence of the wind of change via Dos Lobos says. Sean is here. Welcome, Sean. That's a new name that I'm seeing. Sean Zeiser, 32-year-old Aquarius with Cancer moon rising. Well, welcome, my friend. I'm glad that you're here. Laura is talking about colonics. Maybe. I'm going to leave that to all of you. But maybe there's a purge that needs to happen around this period of time. You know, so
Virgo season detox.
There you go. Perfect. Kate says health and hygiene will be prominent as school starts as well, along with continued challenges related to viral spread, monkeypox, COVID, flu, immunizations, criteria for safety measures, etc. 100%, Kate. I'm glad that you bring that up, because we're heading into a time where people are going to be gathering in spaces once again, which can raise the anxiety level. That is a great point, Kate, because that actually that seems to work with that new moon in Virgo with an overcoming square to Mars, where kids are going back to school, parents are starting to kind of freak out because it's like, oh shit, we're going back to school, COVID numbers are kind of high, we've got to do all these different procedures to stay safe. I know that in our family, that's something that we're thinking a lot about, because we've been in a little bit of a family bubble for a long time, and now with the daughter going off to school, there's going to be a need to deal with, we're even thinking about how to create a quarantine room for her, because colleges basically, their policy is like, if your kid gets sick, we're sending them home. And I'm like, oh, that's not a good policy.
Yeah.
So
Is she going to college like out of state?
She got a full ride scholarship. I'm very proud of her. She got a full ride scholarship to a school that's 4 blocks down the road.
Oh, wow. So at least she's close though. That's nice.
Yeah, she wanted to stay closer to home. She got into some other schools that were very good, but they gave her a full ride, room and board, everything's paid for it. And she really worked hard to get that scholarship, and she wants to live in the dorms. So I think it'll be a good experience for her, but there's definitely challenges right now for kids going to school and staying safe, and she's got roommates and things like that. So I definitely agree with what Kate is saying about health and hygiene practices and figuring out the systems that will help keep people safe in this age of plague. I guess that's crazy.
Yeah, the first week into my daughter's camp, she got exposed to a kid that had COVID, and they called me, and that's like not the call that you want to get. No. Like I was just like getting through, like it was the second week that I got the call, and it was just like, okay, like, I have this alone time. I'm starting to like work myself into like accepting that. And then I get a phone call that you have to come and pick her up because she's been, exposed.
Yeah.
So, and then we all got it. So, because with the little one, you can't like, she's only 2.5. So I can't be like, okay, go over there. It's like, she's still nursing. And so.
Because they want to be up in your
she literally sneezed on me. Like, So I was just like, okay, well, I have it now. I didn't already. So
yeah, that's man. What a challenging time just for society in general, but being a parent of small children, I do feel grateful that my daughter at least was a little bit older and was able to sort of be in her own space. My heart goes out to all of you who are raising young kids right now, and it's just a whole different consciousness that we're having to embrace. And I think part of this is, I'm going off on a small tangent here, but the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in air signs that we saw in the end of 2020 is a way that traditional astrologers look at different epochal changes in society. And man, we are really having to shift to a new way of relating to one another. And I think that we're in the early stages of a 200 to 300 year process. And it's like, I don't know. That's what I say. I'm like, I have no fucking idea.
There's definitely no going back, No. And I feel like it's just the way that lined up is crazy. Right. Whereas, we're not going back to those ways. So now we're like, everything's still kind of breaking down, and there's a whole process. Like what I like to see, or what I call it right now, is that unearthing process is what was coming with more so with the Mars and Uranus. But I just feel that in general, there's this unearthing and just digging through like this really hard earth and just these fixed, patterns and thoughts and all of the things. And well,
I think this is how we have to be like Dragonfly, right? We have to be flexible. We have to, because things are changing from one week to the next, one day to the next, 1 month to the next. And this is something that I've been telling people that I think should bear repeating. It's okay not to have all the answers right away. You live into the answers. I think if someone tells you that they have it all figured out right now, they're completely full of shit.
They don't know. No, they don't.
So I tend to err on the side of caution, and I think that that's okay. And it's okay to admit that, and it's okay to be like, I'm just trying to figure it out. We're going to take one day at a time. And just because something was true last week does not necessarily mean it's going to be true tomorrow. And it's tough, because we've come from that earth age of like, okay, we have different systems where you do this and you do this, you'll be able to do this in life, right? And now it's like, all those rules are completely out the window, and we had to figure out how are we going to be like air. Okay, so great comments in the chat here. We have Via Dos Lobos says, Dragonfly reminds us of a time and place where magic reigns, iridescence of her wings. Yes, I love that. It's very easy in these times to get bogged down with the bad news, right? Of the uncertainty, and how do we get in touch with the magic of life and of hope, I think. I think that's something I've been struggling with, is how do we, yeah, where's the other side of this? Where's the shore that we're going to?
Well, I feel like lately it's like I grasp that optimism, and then like the next day there's something like new in the news or something happening. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
So it's like the 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
It's exhausting.
It's a lot.
Well, we've got probably about 6 more months of Saturn in Aquarius, so buckle in for that at least.
Although I don't know how I feel about Saturn and Pisces.
Well, there'll be
like pop my
challenges.
Pisces. I love
I think that's going to be, because you're going to have it hit some prominent placements in your chart with all your good planets, right?
Yeah, I'm like, no, don't go there. Like, please don't.
My initial thought on that, and we're going on the Pisces and Venus and Pisces rabbit hole here, or to Saturn and Pisces even. I think that we're going to be so fed up with like all these separate things that now we're going to be dealing with like the metaverse type of thing, right?
Oh goodness, yeah.
Right? I feel like that's going to be like, oh, we can't touch each other in real life because there's just a new disease every other day. How are we going to have virtual sex or something with these things? Yeah. I was having a conversation with this with my family. I was like, yeah, don't worry. Like, you'll probably have these sensors you can stick to your temples pretty soon. Anyway. So I don't know. We'll see what that brings, but I'm sure that will have its own challenges that we'll have to learn to navigate as a species. Let's see. Susanna, who I believe probably has some pretty good paintings of a dragonfly somewhere, I'm betting. Dragonflies often fly close to the surface of the water. They're really beautiful and ethereal. I agree. And Kate says, people throw down butterfly in relation to transformation, but crap, dragonflies really go through it. That is true. Right? Exactly. So transformative time for sure. And I'm going quickly through these, so forgive me for that. They are inclined to, Kate says, they're inclined to land on high surfaces. So if one is near, hold something up and sometimes they will land. Oh yes. Just hold something.
I don't see them that often, which is crazy. Like sometimes I'll see them close to the water.
Yeah.
But I don't see them that often. So yeah.
Yeah, I think going towards like a pond or like a creek or something like that, you're probably gonna find more of them since the nymphs are coming out of the water, I'm sure. But like we were saying, a lot of them get eaten before they would make it to a place, that isn't water.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, friends. I'm going to move on to the I-Ching here. You all have lovely thoughts. These chats are getting so active that I can't even get to every single comment. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I try to do my best, so forgive me for not reading every single one. But I love your contributions. I love the community that you're creating here, even with the chats amongst yourselves as well. All right, so the hexagram that we have for this full moon, and I always ask the hexagram, what is the essence of the full moon or the new moon or the month of this astrology? And I got hexagram number 63, which I thought was, the I-Ching is amazing because this basically translates to after completion and ferrying complete. It's like everything in its place, mission accomplished, after fulfillment, maintaining equilibrium, preventing deterioration, watching carefully, minding the kettle. So they talk in this hexagram about a transition from one shore to another. So it's funny that we had that 6 of Wands card, right? But there's a caution here because this is moving with one changing line to number 49. And the changing line in the translation that I use says, the finest clothes turn to rags. Be careful all day long. So to me, that we're seeing in this, we think that we're over. I think that what I'm interpreting that's coming into my mind now is a lot of people think the pandemic is over. The pandemic is not over. Uh, Not even close. And I think that what Portia and I are saying is that this is probably going to be something we're going to deal with as a species moving forward for the foreseeable future, is communicable diseases that are cropping up that we're going to have to learn how to deal with. And we're going to have to learn how to live our lives with it, and taking proper precautions and things like that. So the other thing I think that this speaks to in my mind is late stage capitalism. Like we have this, and also just like the challenges of getting to the end of the abundance of summer, and we're like, oh, we're celebrating the abundance of summer, but knowing that the winter is coming, right? And knowing that there will be challenges that move forward. So I wrote down in my notes the seeds of deterioration present at the heights of civilization, keeping things moving and sailing along smoothly by exercising caution and prudence. Again, we were talking about kids going back to school, taking precautions, keeping your guard up, wearing a mask if you're in an indoor space. I know in my home state of Michigan, the spread has been upgraded to, the risk has been upgraded to high as far as COVID spread right now. So something to keep in mind. Don't get lax or lazy. Stay vigilant. Be on your guard. This is still a fragile situation that is in transition. One translation compared this to being in a leaky boat. So you're in this boat is leaky. Right. So keep paddling. Stay on firm ground. Keep paddling. Keep going. Keep putting the new structures in place that will keep you safe. Keep doing your due diligence. Keep washing your hands. Keep wearing your mask. Keep being judicious about the spaces that you put yourself into. Doesn't mean you can't live your life. I think we're all getting to the point in all of this where our sanity is being tested. I know mine is. I miss people. But that's why I love this space. Again, thank you to all of you for being here with us in these virtual spaces. And I think that this is something where we may have to get better at creating community in these virtual spaces. But this is changing to the hexagram 49, which translates to revolution, molting, shedding old skin, metamorphosis, transformation, out with the old. So going through that process, we're going to have to embrace change, right? What do you think? What speaks to you with this hexagram reading?
So much. I mean, just the fact in which energy is always changing, right? And there's never, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I don't feel like we're going to experience anytime soon just like this completely peaceful, blissful place for a while, because a lot of things are out of balance. And so if we learn how to, again, find our own inner strength and our own inner light, and being able to hold ourselves strong within the chaos, within just the turmoil and the chaotic things that come up, like we will be better at, just navigating that whenever it arises. So we'll be able to enjoy the amazing times, and then we won't panic when we're in a pandemic, so to speak. So I think that ability to be adaptable is really important, to have your own, personal power again, because that's always going to be there. If you can connect with that energy, regardless of what's going on in your outside world, that inner strength has the opportunity or the ability to always be there. And that's most important. And we're in this rebuilding process. And so it's like learning to adapt what's come up right now. This is not going to be forever. It might not be this bad forever, but we have to really move forward and, be smart about things. So I think the adaptability definitely came up, the change, and just personal empowerment for sure.
I love that. I love it. You're so spot on with that, Portia, because this is really testing our ability to find centeredness and find inner peace, isn't it? When everything is kind of changing and shifting around us, that's when that is really testing our spiritual practices, really, right? And how do we create that centeredness? How do we return back to balance when things are going crazy around us? And I don't know if it's going crazy. It does feel a little crazy. I think that it's change, right? It's intense change. And if we were to view this from the 30,000-foot dragonfly Saturnian perspective, we'd see that the Earth is going through these longer cycles, right?
Yeah.
And we feel like we're in this tiny little speck of a moment, but it's really just part of this bigger cycle. And these are growing pains. These are like labor pains for something new that wants to be birthed. And I hope that we can put energy into birthing something good, right? There's got to be some good that comes out of this, because the Earth age, we can't keep going on like that. The Earth is telling us that we can't keep exploiting people. We can't keep exploiting animals. We can't keep exploiting the Earth itself and heating the Earth up and not thinking about the balance of the ecosystem. And how are we going to create something new and create something that is reflective of the requirements of our new time, our new age? And it's tough because many of us, I don't want to give your age away, but we're heading towards middle age, right? We've had certain habits we've had for a few decades, and how do we like undo some of those old habits and embrace something new? And I think of this with equality as well, and like between the haves and the have-nots, the insiders and the quote unquote outsiders, right? How do we create a more equitable society as well? I think that's all part of this. And sometimes it gets a little worse before it gets better, doesn't it? I think that's the pain before you've gone through this. You've literally given birth out of your body. You had those labor pains, and then at the end of it, you had a beautiful little baby. It was you made joy from your body. But it's
so crazy,
right?
Such a crazy experience, and just like going from not being a parent to being a parent, and like as a female, like being the mother, that was literally a transformative process. Like I felt that the whole mother, maiden, and crone, I could feel that going from like the maiden to the mother. It's like a complete like death and rebirth experience. For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm in awe of folks that are able to give birth out of their bodies and the strength that entails to do that. I think I would chicken out just even thinking about how much that hurts.
Yeah, you wouldn't. You have no idea until you do it. So you have like when you have your second one, which I haven't, then I'm like, oof, how do you even go through it?
Well, I applaud you for that. And I think that as a collective, we're just going through a little bit of that right now. And I think hopefully we'll get to the other side of this. But as Porsche and I have been saying, it's not going to look like it did before. We're not returning to something. We're creating something completely new. And once we embrace that, I think that we will have less of this pain that we're experiencing when we actually come into alignment with the changes that need to take place, rather than fight against them, right? Instead of moving with the Tao, rather than trying to constantly swim upstream, trying to embrace a past that was maybe not even that great to begin with.
Right.
Right. Yeah, maybe for some people, but not for everybody. And that's what we're trying to promote here, is how can we make an equitable world for everyone, not just a select few. I'm just looking through the chat here, Portia, just to get some of these great thoughts as we wrap up here. I know you got to get going here. Your friend Mary's talking about Demolition Man, old movies where sex was introduced virtually way back in the 90s. I mean, well, this is probably not an original thought that we've had here on this podcast. Like, people are trying to figure out ways to get down since time immemorial. So, so we have, let's see, Raven often sees dragonflies at the lake, which is awesome. Yeah. Let's see, Susanna says 63 is a funny hexagram because it looks so perfect, but the interpretation is much more complex. I agree, Susanna. Everything it feels like it's we've gotten across the other side, but we have to remain vigilant, or we can undo some of the good that we've done as well. Lisa Lisa's going through a transition of herself, trying to embrace a new job and career, leaving the career that she's had for a long time. Good luck to you, Lisa. Rooting for you. Kate says that they are a novice astrologer, but believe in the different variations of viral concerns will be prominent, not exclusively COVID. In the U.S., first case of polio in 10 years. Oh boy.
Oh no, in New York, that's where I
That sucks. Yeah, polio, monkeypox, COVID. Again, many astrologers have done some research where they connected the transition from the Earth to the Air Age to a time where communicable diseases were a thing, and
am.
much more prominent in the collective consciousness. So I do think that that is something that we're going to have to really come to terms with, unfortunately, and figure out a way to maintain our humanity and our hope through those
Yeah.
things. But we will. I mean, we had to do this when we shifted ages to the Earth Age. Look at all the changes that happened in the Earth Age with the Industrial Revolution, like all the inventions that happened. Some of that was terrible, some of it was amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll see it here too. Okay. I think that's what we've got here today. Thank you, Portia, for joining me today. This was so much fun. So much fun. Really appreciate all of your insights, your intelligence, and please, everybody, follow Portia at Urania Universe with an underscore between those two words on Instagram,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
Urania
that's where I'm the
Universe.
most active. I do have a YouTube channel that I upload my weekly forecasts.
Nice.
So that's there too.
Okay, so check Portia out on Instagram, YouTube, at her website. Sign up for her email list. That's the biggest thing that all of you can do, actually. That's really the best way to stay in touch with your favorite content producers, astrologers, diviners, is sign up for their email list, because then you don't have to go through any of the like corporate rule changes of like YouTube and Instagram, and you're not
especially
fighting.
with Instagram with all the impersonators, and who knows how that's going to turn out. So that's why I'm like, sign up for my email list and you will stay connected with me wherever I go,
And the other thing is, we don't have to fight an algorithm to be seen on there too. Sometimes you'll subscribe to a channel and you won't even see the content because the algorithm isn't serving it up to you. So the email list is the best way you can support your creator friends. So hopefully you'll be able to do that. Sign up for Portia's Chiron workshop on Friday. Sign up for my Decans webinar on August the 20th. And, have a good full moon in Aquarius. Try to keep your center, be flexible, and we'll all get through it together. Any final thoughts, Portia, before we sign off?
I just thought how this is like, we're well prepared with this full moon Aquarius having this chat like a week early. Yeah. So I just feel that speaks to that Six of Swords energy. Yeah. I'm being prepared, and So.
All right. Well, thanks again, my friend. And thanks for all of you and your wonderful comments. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave me a comment, whether it's here in this box or after the fact. And please, as always, remember, be kind to yourself, as we've been talking about today, with that self-love and getting alignment with your best self and supporting yourself, but also be kind to others as well on their journeys, support them on their journeys as well. And we'll just get through it together. All right, my friends, that's what I've got for today. I'll talk to you later. Peace.
Yeah.